Lena Hartley had lived a quiet life in the countryside of Vermont, a single mother raising her only child, Amara, after the tragic loss of her husband, Nathan, in a car accident 7 years ago. She had poured all her love and soul into raising Amara, and by the time Amara turned 11, Lena finally began to allow herself the thought of happiness again. That happiness came in the form of Victor Blackwell, a charming, well-spoken, successful entrepreneur who had recently moved into the area. He met Lena at a town fundraiser, wooed her with effortless grace, and made Amara laugh like a child without a care in the world. For a long time, Lena thought fate had finally offered her another chance. They were engaged within a year. Victor moved into Lena's farmhouse, helped renovate it, brought gifts, took Amara to horseback riding lessons, and made Lena believe in family again. But behind the smiles there were small cracks. Words he said that didn't sit right, odd phone calls at night, trips to the city he wouldn't explain. Lena's intuition whispered warnings, but love muffled them, until the day Amara disappeared. It was a crisp autumn morning when Lena's world collapsed. Amara had gone for her usual ride on the trails near the woods. When she didn't return by noon, Lena searched frantically. She called Victor, who brushed off her panic. "She's probably just exploring," he said, but something in his voice struck Lena as cold. The search dragged on for weeks. The police questioned locals, volunteers scoured the forest, and Lena's face aged 10 years in a month. Victor played the role of the grieving stepfather-to-be, but Lena saw it, the detached grief, the forced sympathy, the lies. Then, a child's shoe was found near the edge of an abandoned mine, Amara's, but no body. The authorities ruled it an accident. Lena knew better. 3 months later, Lena found an old burner phone in Victor's toolbox in the shed. On it were texts, some deleted, some not, from a number saved only as R. Conversations about payment cleared, the girl, and final transfer once complete. Her hands trembled, her skin turned ice. Victor hadn't just lied, he had done something to her daughter, and Lena had slept beside him. She dug deeper, unlocking secrets Victor thought buried, a history of fraud, manipulations of vulnerable women, money laundering through fake businesses, and, most horrifying of all, a link to a human trafficking ring operating across New England. Amara had never been in that mine. Victor had sold her. Lena changed overnight. She stopped crying. She stopped speaking to friends. She started learning about surveillance, about hacking, about tracing shell companies, about how predators communicate in code and vanish through shadowed networks. She created a false identity online and infiltrated forums. She made contacts with dark web vigilantes. She learned how to disappear. She sold her house, bought a burner van, bleached her hair. The woman who once baked pies for county fairs now carried a switchblade in her boot and an unlicensed Glock under her coat. She tracked R. He was real. A man named Rafe Delgado, a former mercenary turned trafficker. She found his compound in Pennsylvania, disguised herself as a buyer, and infiltrated his auction. And there, in a cage, barely conscious and drugged, was Amara, her little girl. The extraction was brutal. Lena snapped Rafe's neck with a steel pipe and didn't flinch. She took 2 bullets but kept moving. She carried Amara on her back through the woods for 5 miles, where a trusted contact airlifted them to a private clinic. Amara survived, but she was changed, silent, shaking, her innocence shattered. Victor, meanwhile, had vanished, his money withdrawn, his name erased. Until one day, he reappeared, living in luxury in the Caribbean under a fake name, Julian Vale. Lena had contacts now, men and women who owed her favors. She tracked him, she watched him. She didn't report him to the police. She made it personal. Victor came home to his Ocean View villa one night and found Lena sitting at his dining room table, a gun in her lap, a small photo of Amara between them. He laughed at first, until she shot him in the leg. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She told him calmly about every night Amara woke up screaming, every time she asked why Victor, who called himself Daddy, gave her to monsters. She told her what Amara drew now, pictures of cages and men with no faces. He begged, he cried, he offered money. Lena poured gasoline over his silk couch. "Money," she said, "won't unbreak my daughter." The fire consumed the villa as Lena walked out and locked the door behind her. Lena was never found, neither was Victor's body, but the remains were discovered months later, enough to confirm his death. Lena and Amara lived off-grid, in a quiet cabin in the mountains of Montana. Amara, with time, spoke again, first a word, then a sentence, then full stories. Lena never remarried, never sought another family. Her heart had been buried in the ashes of her home, her old life, and her former love. She had avenged her daughter, but the cost had been everything. Years later, a best-selling memoir titled The Cage, the Fire, the Girl hit the shelves, authored anonymously. Survivors of abuse called it a gospel, a tale of war, rage, grief, and reclamation. At the back of a bookstore in Portland, a teenage girl with soft eyes and a long scar down her arm signed copies with a single name, A.H. And in the distance, watching from the trees, a woman with silvered hair and hands that once held a gun smiled, then walked away, never looking back. 10 years later, the world had changed. Amara Hartley, now 21, walked through the chaos of modern cities with the quiet stillness of someone who had already survived hell. The headlines screamed of war, economic collapse, and corruption, but nothing compared to the war that once raged inside her chest. She was no longer the little girl in the cage. She was the woman who came out of fire. And now, it was her turn to burn the world that hurt her. Amara received the letter on her birthday. It was a single yellowed envelope with no return address, only her name written in perfect calligraphy. Inside, a photograph. A little girl, in a cage, just like her. On the back, a date, last week, and a GPS coordinate in Istanbul, Turkey. She hadn't spoken of those years in a long time. After her mother rescued her and burned Victor to ash, Lena kept her away from it all. Gave her books, nature, therapy, safety. They lived like ghosts, always moving, never staying in one place longer than a season. But someone knew. Someone who remembered. Someone who was still doing it. Amara packed her backpack, took the burner phone Lena kept in a box marked "in case of fire," and left a single note on the kitchen table. "Don't follow me. I have to be her now." The trail led Amara through the darkest veins of Europe. Black markets, corrupted embassies, refugee camps, private ports. The coordinates led to a man named Dmitry Malenkov, a Russian trafficker known as the Collector. He dealt in more than children. He collected bloodlines. Royal children, celebrity offspring, missing daughters of diplomats. He called them the Precious. Amara went undercover, using her trauma like a weapon. She posed as bait, as buyer, as broken. She learned to fight from ex-special ops soldiers her mother once trusted. She knew 10 ways to kill a man with a pen. But this was more than revenge. It was rescue. It was justice. And it was personal.
because she found out something chilling. Dmitri was Victor Blackwell's brother. Victor hadn't just sold Amara for money. He had sold her to his own blood. Dmitri had wanted her because of who she was, because of who her mother was. Because Lena Hartley, once upon a time, had been the daughter of a CIA field operative who went rogue and disappeared. They hadn't just wanted Amara. They had been hunting Lena all along. And now Amara realized. Her rescue had been the spark, but the fire wasn't over. Not yet. Dmitri had created a new network, richer, more protected, woven into governments, orphanages, even adoption agencies. He called it the New Eden. Amara sent one encrypted message to her mother. They wanted you. They still do. It ends with us. Lena arrived in Istanbul within 36 hours. It was the first time in years they stood side by side, both fully aware of the war ahead. Lena was no longer the broken woman Victor betrayed. She was a ghost, a whisper, a nightmare to the men who once bought girls. Her hair had turned completely silver. Her eyes had no tears left in them. Together, they were a weapon. Lena had maps, Amara had passwords. Lena had names, Amara had rage. They found Dmitri's estate beneath a winery in southern France. A palace of luxury above ground, a hell beneath it. Children, chains, cameras. Amara disguised herself as a girl for auction. Lena posed as the buyer. And when Dmitri appeared on the balcony to survey his collection, Amara looked him in the eye and whispered, "Your brother," screamed louder. Then all hell broke loose. The gunfight was brutal. Lena was shot twice, once in the ribs, once in the leg. She kept going. Amara moved through fire like a shadow. They killed guards, freed girls, burned files, hacked servers. They broadcast Dmitri's secrets onto the darknet. Names, clients, video proof. The world watched in horror. By the time Interpol arrived, the estate was in flames. Amara dragged Dmitri into the burning courtyard and left him there, bound to a post. She didn't shoot him. She let the children do it. Some spat on him. Some cursed him. Some just watched him burn. 6 months later, a global task force called the Ember Network was launched. Untraceable, off-grid, built from former agents, survivors, hackers, and mothers. Their mission: hunt predators, protect survivors, expose systems. At the heart of it stood Amara Hartley, a woman with fire in her blood and ghosts in her memory. And somewhere, in a quiet town with roses and morning bread, Lena Hartley sat in a garden, watching birds return to their nests. She didn't worry anymore. Her daughter was the fire now. And fire doesn't forget.